today with one of our alumni from Abraham Lincoln University School of Law, Greg Yacoubian. Greg, thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your practice as a lawyer in your firm.
Well, presently I'm working as a solo practitioner. I do have a network of associates that I work with, but my practice is located in Westlake Village, California. I'm a litigation attorney, and I am really narrowing the scope of my work primarily to police officer, administrative defense, regarding discipline hearings and the related writs and civil litigation that flow from those types of proceedings. And then also I have a portion of my practice is with family law, primarily dealing with police officer related divorce, custody issues, support issues, that sort of thing.
And how long have you been practicing law?
About 8.5 years now.
Okay, and you've got your own firm.
I do.
And what do you like most about your practice as you have it going now?
Well, I do like being my own boss at some level. Being a solo practitioner, I have the ability to be selective about the cases that I decide to take on. And if there's a matter that I choose to pass on, I can more easily. I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing as far as the work that I'm presently involved in at this stage in my life. And I just feel like there's a real deep sense of satisfaction knowing that I am my own boss. I'm employing a couple of individuals now as staff at the office. But I just found it to be very, very satisfying.
Now, tell us a little bit about your background. I know you come from a law enforcement background, and it's quite a transition going from law enforcement to law school. But tell us about your background and how you got into law enforcement, and then what led you to become a lawyer.
Well, going way back, in fact, right out of high school, I did go straight to college. I did about a year. I did well in college, but I did drop out and went into private business for a number of years. During that time, I met my wife, started having children, sold my businesses, and at the time I was in my early mid-20s and was looking at another career path. Mainly I wanted something that I felt would allow me to give back to the community and at the same time would provide some stability for my family. And I looked at law enforcement. That was really the main reason why I went that route, was because it would satisfy those two main goals in my life. And I did enter into a career with the Los Angeles Police Department. This was in the mid-'80s at the time. I did do 26 years. It was a great career. The department was very good to me, and I did go through the ranks of police officer, detective, sergeant. Ultimately, I retired as a lieutenant. But shortly after coming on the department, I always had that nagging desire to go back and finish up my education. So I entered into what I like to call the 22-year degree program. So I went back and I was constantly chipping away at the undergraduate degrees, and ultimately I did obtain 2 associate degrees toward the latter part of the 90s. And as I was coming up on the end of that education adventure, taking classes part-time while I was working full-time at the department, I did encounter an individual who was in law school at the time in the latter part of the 90s when I was working as a detective. And he told me about his law school experience right here at Abraham Lincoln University, and we'd have what I characterize as water cooler conversation, kind of incidental contacts. And he planted the seed, and a couple of years later, in fact it was May of '99 when I ultimately did wrap up those other 2 degrees I told you about earlier, I started thinking about law school because of that seed that this individual had planted. So I went back and talked to the boss, my wife, and we were discussing that issue of potentially going to law school. And of course, we both had our preconceived notions of what law school would be. So we agreed that I would go to the open house here at ALU, Abraham Lincoln University, and this was about July-ish of 1999. And the dean at the time had invited prospective students, if they wanted to come and audit classes, they could, and I did. And it definitely was very different from what I thought it would be.
In what way?
Well, I've always seen lawyers, law school. You think back on some of the movies. Paper Chase is an example. Being very confrontational, and I know it's endearingly referred to as a Socratic method in law school. But it wasn't that. It was what I had from AOU was a sense that there was a desire to see the students succeed, and that was something I felt really came through in the professors that I was observing. Also, just the study of law, what I found physically being present was that this was not just a read of old, dry, dusty books, stodgy, black letter law. It was actually a survey of real people, real problems, real issues. And as I start to see that perspective, I found it actually terribly exciting. And the more obviously I did ultimately sign up, which was really the next step, I found that perspective on the study of law really grasped me and really helped me to see just the fascinating part of law that really still grips me even today.
Tell me, what do you find most challenging in your practice right now?
I would say probably the biggest challenge is time management. There are a number of things that can tend to pull on your time. And I mentioned earlier that I did retire at the level of lieutenant, although I did stay on the department as a reserve. But at the sergeant lieutenant level, you start to develop an appreciation for the ability to delegate, and I'm still learning that. But I think the most challenging part is really providing clients full attention. One thing that I really do as lawyers, I try to return calls usually within the same business day or for sure by the following business day at the latest. But I would say that's the most challenging aspect. But at the same time, it's also it's good to feel that you're needed at the level that people would actually be seeking your time. So it's exciting at some level as well.
What do you, having gone through this process, from a law enforcement career and now having your own law firm, what would you share with someone who's thinking about potentially making that kind of a transition? What would you tell them?
First thing they need to do is make a heartfelt, inward, brutal analysis. If that individual has truly critically analyzed that decision, and once that decision has been made, in other words, once a person has really looked at their lives, and that you can't exclude, your spouse, significant others, and your family, work from that decision-making process. But once you've decided that you can truly block out 15, 20, 25 hours a week, every week after week, month after month, year after year, for a 4-year and about 3-4 month period straight through, and you're able to do that because that's an important piece of the decision making, and you have the true desire to want to help people and commit yourself to the study of, as I mentioned, the law, real people, real problems. Don't delay the decision. I would say you made the decision. You need to pursue it. I wouldn't defer the decision. And kind of the subsequent piece of advice or thought that I would provide also is once you put your hand to the plow, don't look backwards. Sadly, and I think back on some folks, even some students that I remember that I started out with in law school, intelligent, very intelligent people, probably people a lot smarter than me, but they started out and they were sidetracked because of either work, or they were frustrated because they got a poor mark on an exam, or there was some area of law that they found exceptionally challenging, and they felt like they just couldn't overcome that. I would say that don't don't allow those kinds of challenges to throw you off course. Make that decision. Once you decide this is what you want to do, don't defer the decision, and then once you put your hand to the plow, see it all the way through.
Well, I just want to tell you that we're very proud of all your accomplishments and the spirit that you bring to your work and your efforts in the community to help people, and as well as your law enforcement background. And I want to let our audience also know that Greg was the valedictorian of his class at our school, and all that hard work really paid off for you. I really appreciate you taking the time to come in today and share your story with people who might be thinking about taking this step. Any last words you would like to add?
Well, I do thank you very much for those closing kind words. I would say that I would not have been able to do this but for AOU, and I've always made that very, very clear, and I deeply appreciate the staff here, the deans, Dr. Park, because with the way my life unfolded, being married, 3 children in their teens at the time, the commitments at work, but for AOU I would not have been able to do this, and I do appreciate the fact that AOU provided this opportunity, and I just wish again God bless the continued work that you're doing here at AOU.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.